If a house needs updates, or if it has a flaw with it, let's say it has like a really steep driveway or something, or if it just has certain flaws with it that usually would have been ignored a few years ago, those things are all becoming a factor in today's present market, especially when you compare it to the fact that there is more competition entering the market, right? If you got 500,000 more sellers, that also means that all of these sellers are now competing with one another for that limited pool of buyers that are out there. And so it's been more important than ever before to make sure that your house is pristine, that you have it ready to go, that you have it cleaned up, that you have it looking presentable, because those are all things that buyers are going to be paying attention to now more than they ever have before. Welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. In this week's episode, we'll be doing a little bit more of current events and discussing the state of the housing market in our country, particularly in our area as well too. But I really want to discuss this subject that is heavy on everyone's mind. People are always interested in what's going on in the market. That's the number one question that I get as an agent all the time from everyone, friends and family, is how's the market doing? Like, what's going on in the market, right? People are always interested in that, always wanting to know what's going on. And so wanted to discuss what we are seeing on a national scale, as well as what I have noticed recently taking place in the market, in our own market and in my own business. And so I don't know if you guys have read it yet, but CNN recently released an article where they gave a shocking statistic to some, I should say. It was shocking if you had not been in the market, whatever. Agents, we've kind of been feeling and sensing this shift kind of taking place, but they basically reported that there are currently 500,000 more home sellers than buyers right now in the housing market. And that's kind of speaking from a national perspective. And they were talking about how that's kind of a clear sign that the market is starting to shift to a more balanced market than what we've seen over these last few years. Now, this, they said, was the highest that they had seen since they started recording these stats back in 2013. And so it's not necessarily indicative of what you may have been looking at, and people may be wondering, okay, what was it like maybe after the Great Recession and all those other numbers too. Those we don't really have concrete numbers on right now, but this is a clear sign that we are starting to see some things change, a little bit more surplus in the inventory, which means, of course, more choices for buyers and potentially greater choices for negotiating power in some circumstances. Now, as I always have said from beginning to end, real estate is hyper-local, so it changes based on where you are. So you may read these national stories and go, that's not what I've been experiencing, or that's not what I've been hearing. It's funny. I have a mailing list that I'm on where I get different emails from different lenders, and I'll kind of just peek in, take a look, and see what they're talking about in the different emails and what the topics are on. And it's funny, like, all of the things that those discuss are usually different from what I'm currently experiencing with my own clients, right? So I'll have a listing that's been sitting and we're not getting any showing activity, and there's just no buyers around. There's no showings taking place. And myself and my seller clients were starting to feel like, man, I don't really feel like there's a lot of buyers out there looking right now. Like, the overall activity just seems slow. And then I'll have an email show up in my inbox where it's like, mortgage applications have spiked. Buyers are in the market like never before. And it was like, where are these buyers, right? And I have to remind myself, of course, that they're speaking more from a national perspective. And so again, just because something is taking place or because a national media outlet reports something, that doesn't always necessarily mean that that's going to be the case where you're living as well. But as an overall general trend, we definitely are seeing more inventory come up. I was looking at the numbers yesterday on kind of the total homes for sale. That's an easy metric that kind of gives me an idea of like kind of just what the supply is looking like in the area. And it is currently, for the month of April, it was in the 9,000s as far as like in our entire MLS, our local MLS. And that's the highest that it's been since prior to the pandemic. So that's the highest it's been in the last 5 years. However, that is by no means the highest that it's ever been, right? Like it was almost double that when we were coming out of the Great Recession, and several thousand more in the years leading up to the pandemic. And so it's still not necessarily a situation where we're like, oh my goodness, it's absolutely a buyer's market based on the demand. But it is something to take note of, is that we're finally starting to see inventories come back to a more balanced market. What we experienced a couple of years ago in 2021, when you were dealing with just a fraction of the houses, a tenth of the houses that we have on the market right now, that simply was not sustainable. And so that was just a feeding frenzy. And like I said, with that, when you combine that with the low interest rates, it was just ripe for all kinds of craziness to happen in the marketplace. And so now we're finally starting to get back to a more normalized place. But that brings me to my next point, and that is the fact that even though we are starting to notice a shift in just how quickly houses are moving off the market, we're still not seeing a dip in the housing prices, right? The housing prices are still rising, even despite this rush of new inventory that's hitting the market. We've seen 22 consecutive months of year-over-year price increases, right? So it's continuing to go, even though interest rates have shot up. There's still people out there who are looking to buy and sell. There's some people who just want to be in a house and like are looking for those opportunities, and they still may be in a position financially to make that happen. And if you can, by all means, you can do it. What we're seeing right now, though, is that a lot more people are kind of staying on the fence as far as getting into the real estate market to wait and see if they can see either house prices come down or interest rates. Preferably, many of the buyers want both of those things to happen. But like I said, that's one thing that we've seen where a lot of people are kind of just pumping the brakes on their home search. I've had more buyers this year than ever before initially start the process of looking for a house, or start the process of saying like, hey, we're ready to get going. And then they have a discussion with the lender, get sticker shock from the figures that they're quoted from the lender, and say, you know what? We think we might want to wait another year. We think we might want to get a little bit more time to get used and see what's happening in the market, because those numbers were a lot bigger than what we expected that they were going to be. We're also realizing that a lot of sellers that would be looking to traditionally move up in house, right? So maybe they got a growing family, or looking for more space, or looking for something a little bit better. Those individuals are not moving, one, because they don't want to give up their low interest rate, but two, because the house that they would be moving up to, it would be slightly better than the house that they're currently in, right? If they wanted to keep their payments even remotely close to what they are right now, the house that they would be able to move up to would be just gradually better, but not enough to really make it worth their while. And so what we're seeing is a lot more people have opted to just say, hey, I'll take the equity that I have in my home and I'll use that to renovate the house that I'm in right now, and try to make that fit or match more to what I would like to move up to if all things were being equal in a considerate market, right? And so that's one thing that we realize, is that there's still hasn't been the inventory that we need to kind of make up for all the people coming into our marketplace, especially in the triangle, because you have so many sellers who kind of just staying put. The most of the sellers that we're seeing nowadays are people who are relocating out of the area, going through a divorce, selling off a rental property or something like that. Like, that's the typical situations that we're seeing right now. We're not seeing a lot of lateral moves where people are moving within the area or moving up to a nicer house. And so that's keeping the inventory levels down, which again is part of the reason why there's not much inventory or activity in the marketplace, especially when you look at those price points that would be that next level up from a first-time home buyer. So once you get up to that, over that next, whatever that big starting price point is for you, that next level up is going to be noticing more of a shift as well, because a lot of the people who would typically move into those houses can't unload or don't want to make that move yet, because they can't quite get what they're looking for in terms of the prices. And so again, it's a weird market right now in the way that it goes, because again, the inventory is lower and they're having to deal with a lot more. But we're still seeing those prices remain high, and housing affordability continues to be an issue that we're dealing with. Now, as far as the homes that are selling, homes are still selling, but the average days on market in many areas, including in ours, that is continuing to rise. We're noticing that homes are sitting on the market for a lot longer than normal. The houses that do have multiple offers or getting a competitive situation, they're usually, one, they're in a ideal location, but two, not only that, they also are in pristine condition. We have noticed that a lot of buyers are veering towards houses that they don't have to do anything with, right? Because if the house and the interest rates are already high, they don't have any additional funds to come in and redo all of these other things that they want to do. They don't have all these time to get all these projects set up, right? There's not a lot of buyers who are looking to take on a project or a fixer-upper right now. They want something they can move in and just start living in immediately. Preferably, even better if they could do new construction, but they want something that is ready to go, that they don't have to do anything with. They would, if they want to, that's great, but they want something that is ready to go. And so if a house needs updates, or if it has a flaw with it, let's say it has like a really steep driveway or something, or if it just has certain flaws with it that usually would have been ignored a few years ago, those things are all becoming a factor in today's present market, especially when you compare it to the fact that there is more competition entering the market, right? If you got 500,000 more sellers, that also means that all of these sellers are now competing with one another for that limited pool of buyers that are out there. And so it is now has been more important than ever before to make sure that your house is pristine, that you have it ready to go, that you have it cleaned up, that you have it looking presentable. Because those are all things that buyers are going to be paying attention to now more than they ever have before. They want something that they can be proud of and that they can move into quickly and start living their dream home life right out of the gate. And so the houses that we're seeing like that are the ones that are still managing to get multiple offers and managing to sell quickly. We also noticed too that sellers are needing to be uber conservative with their pricing to stand out from the competition. The way that the market is set up right now is that the houses that are priced lower than probably what they could go, those are the houses that are selling quickly. If it's right at that border, even above, overpriced in any way, it's likely sitting a little bit longer than we were expecting. And in some cases, it may sit so long that it starts to get more of a negative stigma and people are kind of turned off where they think it might be something else that's wrong with the home if it hasn't sold just yet. And so pricing is by far the most important factor that we're dealing with in today's market, right? If that pricing is not right out of the gate, it can really cause harm and damage to that potential deal and that success in the marketplace. With the high amounts of equity that many homeowners have in their houses nowadays, it also creates a unique problem because there's now more cushion that a seller has to work with when they're trying to sell their house, right? And so it all comes back to who wants to sell their house and who needs to sell their house, right? If it's a situation where someone needs to sell their home, and let's say they have $100,000 worth of equity in their house right now, if they go to sell their house and it sits a little bit longer than they were expecting, there are some sellers who say, I need to be out of this house right now. And so they may say, hey, I know I probably could wait a little bit longer and get the full market value and get that $100,000 of equity out of this house, but I need to sell this quickly. And so I'm willing to drop that price, 20, 30,000, and walk away with $70,000 as opposed to 100, and that works for me, right? That may be your neighbor's mindset. That may not be your mindset, but that's how your neighbor is thinking. And unfortunately, that is going to weigh down the values in the other houses that are trying to sell in that marketplace, right? And so when we were coming out of the recession, there was so many people who were underwater on their house who just simply couldn't afford to sell at a loss or afford to sell as a short sale, and so they were kind of holding firm on that pricing. Now we have kind of the reverse problem where there's so much equity out there for many of the homeowners that there are people who can afford to take a hit, and that is inadvertently hurting the surrounding homeowners as well. And so that's a problem that we definitely need to keep our eye on, is that the people who are in a situation where they absolutely need to sell, those are the ones that can become more concerning, because again, it's not a situation where it's like a foreclosure or a short sale where it wouldn't necessarily be taken into consideration with the home values. There may be situations where it's like, hey, this person just sold because they had that equity in their house and they were willing to take more of a hit than someone else would. And so that's all things that we have to pay attention to as this market is beginning to change and shift. Now, while it's not, the inventory levels don't convey that this is a buyer's market that we're in right now. It could be heading that way. We don't know. We'll have to see how things go with bringing more inventory into the market. But as of right now, we're looking at a more balanced market as opposed to a buyer's market. However, this can still be the ideal time for many buyers to start taking advantage of the recent surplus in inventory that we've seen. I'm seeing more emails and more advertisements from other agents referencing incentives for buyers. Seller paid closing costs, rate buy downs, repair credits. People are offering things that I had not seen in the last 3 or 4 years. People are submitting offers asking for closing costs up front. If you had asked for closing costs up front 3 years ago, you would have been laughed out of the room. They'd be like, what are you doing? Like that is not likely to happen. Wherever houses are selling so quickly, there's not enough inventory out here. Like, for you to ask for closing costs right out of the gate, it wouldn't have even been considered. Now it is absolutely something that's being taken into consideration. And we're also seeing deals that are being taken seriously with contingencies, right? If someone has to sell their house in order to buy the next one, it used to be, for the last several years, you couldn't get that to work out. No seller was willing to take that offer on because they didn't want to take on that added risk. Now, with houses starting to sit a little bit longer, sellers are entertaining it more, and I'm seeing more and more contingent offers being accepted. And now that's a benefit to a lot of people who are out there on the fence about whether or not they were ready to make the move. A few years ago, you had to make a decision. Either I'm going to buy or I'm going to sell. That's the only way. I'm going to do one of those first. That's the only way that I can make this happen, right? If they could only afford to buy and sell at the same time, they likely weren't able to get into the market because no sellers were accepting those. Now that more and more contingencies are being accepted, the hope is that it will bring more opportunities for sellers who might have been on the fence, where they say, hey, if I can get my offer accepted with a contingency, that may change things in what I'm willing to do or what I'm able to do in this situation. And so that's one opportunity for buyers to really take advantage of it. Now, I'm not going to say what you might hear many other realtors say during these times, and that is, it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to sell. I never say that, because that is never true across the board. It's may be true for certain people, it may be true for certain situations, but that statement is never true across the board for everyone out there. Everyone's situation is different, and if you were to write out a list of all the reasons why you believe that you are currently prepared to buy, 80% of that list should have to do with your personal situation, and only 20% of the list or less should have to do with the market. Right. So in 2021, when the rates were really low and people were saying like, hey, man, if you need to buy a house, you need to buy a house. Like, these rates will never be this low again. While that may have been true, it's also more dangerous for you to jump into a home buying situation before you're ready to do so. And so that's how people get in trouble. That's how people get into situations where they're in over their head, because they're listening to the market as opposed to their personal situation, right? And so if you are personally in a situation where your finances are in order, you have your down payment, you have money for closing costs, you have a cushion saved up for emergency repairs, you've talked with a lender, they've verified what you can afford. If you've checked all those different boxes and everything checks out where you are good and in a position to buy, absolutely now would be a good time for you to make that move, because again, I'm seeing more incentives and more things being offered to buyers now than I ever have before. New construction communities, I'm seeing $20,000, $30,000 worth of incentives being thrown around like candy, right? And so it could be a wonderful time for you if you are financially prepared to make that decision, right? And so again, it should always have more to do with where you stand personally as opposed to what is taking place in the market. But if you are in that situation where you feel like you're ready, you feel like you've got everything prepared, this could be an ideal time for you, because again, I'm seeing incentives offered like never before. And I'm also seeing more inventory come available too, right? So it used to be a lot of buyers, they were ready to buy, rates were great, they were good to go, but there was so little inventory in the market that they were like, I don't really like what options are available. Now you're getting to look at more options, right? There was a few years where I was only showing one house at a time to a buyer because there was so little inventory. It wasn't like we were going to tour 4 or 5 houses like it was in 2018, 2017, all those years. We could only view one home at a time. Now we're finally getting to a place where people are seeing multiple homes in a day and getting to actually have choices again, right? So like I said, all those factors come together to offer you more options. For sellers, again, you have to be realistic with the pricing and understand that your house needs to be prepared and ready to go and move-in ready. Like I said, you can't say like, hey, I'm just going to replace that stain afterwards on the carpet or something like that, or these nicks on the wall. Those don't really matter. All those things matter nowadays, and you really need to make sure that you're prepared and have realistic expectations into the market. Again, houses are still selling like crazy, right? The price is still going up for a reason, but it is more important now than ever before for you to have a professional realtor in your corner who can help you understand exactly what you need to get that house ready for the market and position it the best way possible for it to really show up for those buyers and really stand out from the competition. So I hope that that's helpful for you all. Again, we'll continue to track to see how things are moving in the market, but this is an interesting shift that we've noticed recently, and I wanted to take some time to talk about it. If you ever have questions, reach out. I'm more than happy to talk about this at any time. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you all next week.